I'd like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining our presentation this evening. My name is Cindy Schufelt, and I'm a school support counselor with Safe Schools and Wellbeing at the Thames Valley District School Board. And this evening, I'm with my colleague Caitlin, who I will let introduce herself now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are so thrilled to have you with us tonight. As Cindy mentioned, my name is Caitlin Chow. I also have the great fortune of working with the Safe Schools and Wellbeing portfolio in Thames Valley District School Board. I am an educator and have typically been in the elementary panel.
So, as Caitlin mentioned, we are a part of a collaboration between local school boards and community partnerships that allows us to host these webinars. Our presentations have been offered online throughout the year, and we've had varied topics and presenters. So if you were to click on the slide, the link in the slide, it will take you to our website where you will see our upcoming presentation tomorrow night, and it will provide you with presentations we've done in the past, as well as more information about key contacts, and we'll be there as well as at the end of tonight's presentation. So tonight we are excited to present Jessica Austin, who is a health promoter with Southwestern Public Health. And this evening she will be speaking to understanding youth substance use and prevention efforts for caregivers. So I will now pass this presentation over to Jessica.
Well, welcome everyone. As mentioned, my name is Jessica Austin. I am a health promoter here with Southwestern Public Health, and I am very passionate about this subject. I've worked in the field of substance prevention for about 15 years, and I am happy to be here to share what information that we currently have available on youth substance use and what we can do as caregivers and adult allies in the youth lives to support them and to prevent them from using substances. Moving forward. So throughout the presentation, I want you to understand I'm going to use the word substances where others might use the word drugs. I'm choosing to use the word substances in this because of the history and context that has created some negative connections and emotions to those who use substances. And so I just wanted to show on the screen what it means when I do say the word substances. Throughout the presentation. Oftentimes, people don't consider alcohol, cigarettes, or other legal products within that word. And so I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page when you hear me talk about substances. So as this quote references, we need to consider where we have been or we are currently at to really know where we're going when it comes to youth substances. And in the next few slides, I'm going to go over some key areas that we need to consider or really talk about as parents and community adult allies when it comes to substance use. The best local data that I'm presenting today is available through our Southwestern Public Health region. It's an oversample of the 2019 Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey. And when I speak about the Southwestern Public Health region, that includes the city of St. Thomas, Oxford County, Elgin County, and Woodstock is in with Oxford County. So I just wanted to highlight that. I also wanted to flag right before this presentation started today, the 2023 OSTIS, the Ontario Student Drug Use and Alcohol Health Surveys, was just released. And so there is more information that has just come out, but this information is from our 2019 very specific oversample in our region. And there are some limitations to this data. We did have a very small amount of students from our region participate. We only had 344 of our grade 7 and 8 students, as well as 354 of our grade 9 to 12 students complete the survey. Of these students, that represents 35% of our schools, grade 7 and 8 schools, and 33% of our secondary schools in the region. Some of the other key limitations that I want to highlight before I get into it is that survey is taken every other year, which provides us with some lag times in getting the results processed. It's typically 2 years behind. Now, I just mentioned we've got the 2023 that's available, so you can look that up, and I will certainly send that link at the end of the presentation that will be available as well. Within these surveys, there are 4 different surveys, 2 for the 7-8 grades, 2 for the 9-12 grades, and not all were asked the same questions between all 4 surveys. There were many substances or other substances within the data asked, but the survey samples were too small for us to be able to report on them. So for our region, you're going to get the information of the most reportable substances for our youth. Having said all that, we do have something to start with. We have the ability to explore some really reachable next steps, and there is solutions within our reach. So getting into the data, there are 3 key areas that we want to talk about and highlight. And starting off, the biggest question everyone asks me is, how bad is it? Or what is our current context or youth substance use rates? In short, we have a higher substance use amongst all substances that were reportable in our region compared to Ontario. For alcohol, for example, 50% of students reported drinking more than a few sips within the past year, and that's 10% higher than our provincial rates. Our survey also revealed that of those 50% of youth, almost a quarter of them are indicating that they are drinking to get drunk. This is drinking to be in that feeling of intoxication. Tobacco use is another significant substance in our region compared to our provincial level. We have 10% of our students using tobacco products compared to the 5% at the provincial level. And as for vaping, our 2019 collection had just over 30% of our students using an e-cigarette product. And as we can imagine, this situation evolved very quickly between 2019 and to where we are today. And so it will be of interest to monitor and look at that number as to what the realistic expectation is in 2024, looking back at that 23 report that was just released. So when we need to consider other pieces of this is we need to look at when they are starting these substances or trying them. And in our region, the general age that you start using is grade 9 or age 14. This is really important for us to consider, as research shows us that the developing brain can significantly be impacted by using these substances. Cannabis, for example, does have an impact on the different aspects of our mental well-being. It has been established that in some studies, it induces early psychosis for youth, more so than any other substance. We also see it leading to opioid disorders and cannabis disorders with youth starting at a young age while their brain is developing. And this is very useful as we're in Mental Health Week right now, talking about the impact that a substance can have on the developing brain and what that means for a lifetime of use. Alcohol, as another example, has demonstrated that if a youth is using by the age of 14 versus 21, it can strongly predict the risk of severe alcohol dependency within 10 years of them starting it. So what that means for our region is we are seeing youth starting at 14. By age 24, we will be needing treatment services and supports for these young adults that will be having alcohol dependency. Finally, we want to understand where they're getting these substances from. Most youth in our region find it easy to access substances. When we think about access, we need to think about all those different spaces that they can get it from. And our reports show us that that pathway is typically found for alcohol through extended family members and family members purchasing and giving youth the alcohol. So that includes siblings or cousins or aunts and uncles, family members outside of the direct family. So 58% of them report being given that, but then we look at vaping and cannabis products, and we're seeing that being shared through friendships and those peer connections. So those are also key pieces that are within that. And when we think about access, we do need to think about the proximity of being able to purchase for those family members and what those restrictions might look like as well for friends and the siblings and cousins to be able to get that and share that forward. So what can we do? We're obviously here as caring adults. We're interested in knowing what the situation is, but we also want to know how we can prevent this from happening. Nobody strives to, make that happen. When we see that we're giving access, nobody wants to see a youth be alcohol dependent in their life. That's certainly not the case for most caring adults that are with us. And so we want to make sure that we are looking at solutions and shifting ourselves away from the way that we traditionally have seen the substance use prevention into ways that we can start to change the community and society and the way that we see substance use. This takes time. We know that behavior change on its own, just simply trying to change something that we have done over and over again repetitively as an individual, is going to take that much longer if we have to change the way that our community and the way that we work together as parents and as our peer groups to change the way that we behave around substances. It takes a village to raise a child, and we know that we need to look at that solution outside of just the parent network, that we need to be able to consider all the roles that are played outside of that relationship between caregiver and child, and shift it as that society as patient to be able to find those collective ways to reduce substance use. We have limiting beliefs that we see amongst many of our communities, where we have stereotyping that youth just use drugs and that's just what it is, that it's a natural phase of development for adolescents. And we can challenge those conversations and those statements with things like, absolutely, it is necessary for a child to take risks. That's a part of learning and growth, but there are other ways to be risky. And many youth find natural risk taking in challenging themselves to go outside of comfort zones with trying new activities, with exploring, setting different goals for themselves within sports or taking on an entrepreneurial job, anything like that. So yes, risk taking is necessary, but we can challenge as adults how we see that risk taking and what we can provide to them to make that happen and meet that need. So this is one of my favorite quotes when it comes to thinking about children and substance prevention. We need to look at the variety of factors and conditions that can grow a child from all levels of their environment. These factors can be concentrated into 4 key domains that have risk and protective factors. These are things that can be modified within the environment that give us the best results and the most success for having a substance-free lifestyle for our youth. So I want this to stay in the back of your mind as we start to walk through some of these key areas of influence. Like I mentioned, we want to not only just look at the risks, the things that cause dangers or put our adolescents at an increased likelihood of substance use, and look at the things that can protect them from the likelihood of substance use. Building a strong community around children, we know, is the healthiest and most cost-effective way to promote the well-being of our future. Moving ourselves where it's become too late down the line of youth already using substances, we're asking for more and more resources by the time we get to that point with treatment and opportunities for program. So we really want to focus in on these key areas of prevention. And this is done by examining some core areas within the realm of the individual youth: family, peer group, school, and leisure time. So I'm going to share a few examples from each of these domains. And I'm hoping in my examples, you can think to yourself what that might look like in your own community or in your own circle and networks and social norms amongst your own parent groups and your youth's peer groups. So within the parents and families, I'm starting off with this one because we just talked about the access point, role modeling our own use as a parent and caring adult in a youth life. One of the things that we see the most is that we associate use with other parts of our life. Do we find that we're referencing to using alcohol when we're stressed or had a stressful day, or in a common situation, like we must celebrate with the use of alcohol or other substances? We must calm down with the use of alcohol or other substances. If that's the case, are there other options that you can use to demonstrate how you could do that in a different way? One of the things that I've really focused on as a mom myself is gosh, I've had a very stressful day at work. I need to go for a walk, or finding some other way that is a hobby or interest of yours that really helps bring you down out of a stressful situation. Oh, there's my cats. That if we can move ourselves into thinking about how that reaction is really promoting these protective factors. Sorry, my cat just changed my slide, and we'll move with it. That we can definitely move ourselves into setting up those realistic expectations of the reaction that children and youth see. Out of those. That children and youth see amongst our day-to-day lives. They are very keenly aware and attuned to our set of values and behaviors towards the substances. And when we set those role modeling examples with them, then they can start to practice those themselves. Being curious with youth is another piece in that parental support and monitoring that we also want to highlight. Identifying and understanding when your child is coming home and they're quiet, or they might have had some stressors throughout the day that you've known that they've had a hard test coming up that's been building for them. How can you help support those conversations of trying to explore other hobbies or interests that can meet that need, and getting them into a place of being comfortable and talking to you about those pieces? Finding those solutions for them are not always necessary. If you find that your youth is speaking with you about and opening up about substance use as a calming way for them to calm their anxiety, or a way for them that they feel is allowing them to sleep, those can be alarming triggers for an adult that cares about that youth. But finding those solutions for them in the moment is not necessary, more so than listening to them and feeding back the opportunity to hold their emotions and move forward with accepting the offer of can I get your help when they're ready for that help, or exploring, I would like to share some stuff with you about other ways that we can help with the anxiety of a test or anxiety of a sports activity coming up, or the stressors like that. And if you don't know what they're asking you for, and you don't know where to seek that help or what those answers are, because there's a lot of substance data, and I've been in it a long time, that I certainly would not answer off the top of my head. But the quick and wonderful answer is always, I don't know that, but I know where to get that answer, or we can work on getting that answer together. Being prepared and having some key websites that are easy to remember in your back pocket are also very helpful. So obviously, I would recommend going to your local public health unit's website and looking at what resources they've collected. That they've already been vetted and that they are there and available for parents to be able to get the most reliable information. You can also access 211.ca, Kids Help Phone, and your school board website has wonderful resources as well. So I want to share that is available for you. But the last piece on this slide is time spent with parents. And just like that, that's honestly what it is. Time spent with parents is shown as a proven, and caregivers is a proven protective factor that you can have with your child. Just spending time in the same space with them. We think about youth centers where we have adult allies, coaches where we have adult allies that are just spending time with you. They don't need to be doing that activity or whatever activity they're doing with them together, but in those same spaces where connection can occur when they're ready for that to occur. So oftentimes we'll say, the youth can be in there watching TV and you're making supper and those kinds of pieces. That time spent together is very valuable time. And we'll come back to that a little bit later on in the resources too. So peer group, just like the family domain, the peer group is quite similar in that it has some very key influences, but can be positive and negative. We know that youth can end up socializing with youth who use substances or experimenting because of the environments that they are exposed to, or their own interest in, let's try this because I had access to it. But with you engaging in your youth in that curious manner, you can look at the attraction of that environment for them. So what does that go back to? Being curious as the adult, creating that room to listen to them and offer support. It might be difficult for them. What you might be hearing from them is that it's difficult for me to see my friend trying to use this as a way to cope themselves. And I feel uncomfortable, so I'm going to do that with them. So most youth will tell us it's not peer pressure, but in that listening stance, we can hear the pressures that are put upon them to just ease the discomfort of being around the substance use with their friend. What we can do as caring adults is help them expand those friendship circles throughout different environments and activities. So introducing them to different spaces like library groups or youth centers or sports or volunteering with a purposeful nature. So creating those meaningful connections in other spaces that they can have other peer groups to relieve some of that pressure of being around the substance use. That doesn't necessarily mean they need to stop being friends with this group, but they can actively engage in those other groups and experience what it looks like from different perspectives, that you can do this and still not need to use substances. And that strategy can also bring about those youth that might be in that peer group that might be using substances to want to come and join them in those activities and redirect them from that experimenting. So you could be expanding your ability as that one caring adult to that one youth to a whole group of that youth's peers by just helping them see and get connected to other groups. Monitoring the extension of those peer relationships is knowing your kids' friends, your youth, their peers, parents. That's a mouthful. But really creating those networks. Once upon a time, we had smaller groups in smaller neighborhoods where we all knew our kids' friends' parents, really enhancing and creating those connections. And in the world of social media and the ability to have the interactions with other parents through text messaging, it can be as simple as just, can you send me Johnny's parents' number so that I can quickly check in with them, where you guys are going, if there's going to be an adult there, and that we can at least get to know each other. And these pieces can really help form that conversation if that parent is also concerned that there might be substance use going on. And then you have an ally in each other and being able to communicate and support each other to keep everybody's kid safe. Leisure time is our third domain that I want to focus on, and this is the time that kids spend outside of school, whether it's organized or unorganized activities. These key considerations that we need to think about is, are they spending the time at unsupervised events or unsupervised settings? Do they feel safe in those spaces mentally and physically? In those community spaces. And originally I had physical spaces down here as an example, like parks and playgrounds and those community skate parks and things like that. But online safety, and where is the ability for them to have the supervision of how much online? And I know that there's some great resources through Thames Valley that was recently presented on that as well. So those are key pieces of that unstructured or unorganized leisure time that youth are spending. They are being subjected to lots of promotion within those local community settings. If that is community events that might include substances or whatever neighborhood that they're in, if they have a high access point or they're seeing lots of marketing on that, that's where we need to, as parents, consider what is our role to work with our local municipalities or libraries or businesses to get creative in what events that we host. Are those events substance free? So are they providing or offering alcohol and substances that our youth are going to be exposed to? And yes, we do have a voice as the members of that community to be able to advocate and work with those partners to have substance-free events and opportunities for families to come together or for parents to feel comfortable that their youth are attending these events without having that exposure or access. Some other pieces that can happen within the local community and leisure time, our parent groups can naturally form and create those opportunities for either structured or unstructured activities. Some of these pieces can be co-organized youth parties where youth can have wonderful opportunities to design or have costumes or do whatever they need to do that kind of fills their bucket on what the activities that they want to include within that. I know lots of youth that have started doing painting parties that include fun snacks and the ability to be able to socialize and just do a YouTube video painting. And these are fun and easy, but ways that parents can contribute, create a space, have that space, have the youth doing something that is of interest to them or that they want to experiment with outside of their comfort zone, because painting might not be something that they've ever tried or thought they could be good at. So those are great ways that parents in the community can kind of organize those or just make those available by advocating with our municipality sport and rec partners. The years of great work that can be done on this can be is an example of some of the work that happened with tobacco. For years and years, we worked with youth and parents to advocate with politicians and public health to curb tobacco sales and marketing in the community. And there are a lot of creative ways that we brought youth voice and parent ambition and activity to really putting a curb on how much advertising and marketing and access we have to tobacco. And none of that would happen if we didn't have groups of parents that came together or engaged youth that came together to make their voices heard on what they wanted to see their communities look like. So I always use that as an example because it seems so far to reach, but yet we've done it before and we can do it for lots of other things as well. It just takes time. Our last domain is where you spend our time, the most amount of their time, and that is schools. And what is our role as parents in supporting schools? We know that there are supportive adults at school, but as parents, we can also support that attitude, that positive attitude towards learning. And if the school relationship with your youth, looking for that ability to manage relationship programs for your youth or getting them access to those within the community or within that exist within the school board to increase their sense of safety and attachment, so what they can be involved with and what the opportunities are. How can we make that happen, and how can we work with other adults in our neighborhood or in our school that could help support us if you can't get your youth to that event, creating those connections and those opportunities to work together to make sure that no youth is left outside of being able to participate in those pieces. One of the other big pieces within the parent role of engaging in school and those protective factors is making sure that we put restrictions on social media, sleep, and homework. Setting those routines and really enhancing that supports the ability for youth to be successful in that space, and that is very much linked to youth substance use. When it comes to it, our local community, I shouldn't say local, but in Lanark County, Northern Ontario, up by Ottawa, they recently discovered that most of their youth that were really sleep deprived were connected to substance use. And so really focusing in on some of those routines and setting those boundaries in those spaces can really help your youth as well. So things that we don't necessarily think about, but it's something to flag. So how can we do this? As I mentioned throughout the presentation, those key domains are important to us, but it's the risk and protective factors, and knowing this data and knowing what we need to really shape and form where our best efforts need to go. We need to look at that further engagement and ability to find out what works for youth in our local communities. So I'm going to share with you a few resources and things that are going on in our communities right now, and that things that you can have access to be able to be getting involved and to work with your youth individually, whether you be a youth advocate in the community or a parent yourself or both. These can be helpful. So first and foremost, the work that I was speaking about in Lanark County with the sleep and the connection to substance use is a model called Planet Youth. And this is, again, about forming and changing the way that we think about substance prevention. It's not a program that runs in a community, but more a method of being able to collect localized surveys and then prioritize out of those domains which risk and protective factors we need in all of our communities to focus on as the diverse group of people, parents, faith-based leaders, schools, public health, researchers, police, hospitals, treatment centers, all come together to put their efforts into those local solutions that meet the needs of youth. And within that group is certainly Youth Voice. This approach has been very successful globally in reducing substance use dramatically over the years. It's currently been adopted in our national drug strategy, as well as several communities across Canada. Locally, we are working on establishing community tables that will be implementing this model and looking at those local solutions once we collect data. So we are open and welcoming any caring adult that is interested in getting to know more and getting involved, if you are at whatever level of commitment that you want to be involved in this, to reach out to us. So I have the link there on the page that you can stay connected. There's lots of resources on that page when it comes to that community level. So that group would be working at the community level solutions of what can happen and what we need to do to make it happen. Other resources that I want to leave you with are quick and easy for you to grab on and look a little bit deeper. If you are looking to have conversations with your youth about substances or specific substances, Drug Free Kids Canada has wonderful resources that can help you speak directly to specific substances or know more yourself about those specifically, as well as Parents Matters. And this is through our Southwest Public Health link that you can see on the screen. Going through our website, you will be able to see more options that can connect you, including links for within these pages that help build your active listening skills and tools for conversation starters, which is always kind of the biggest resourceful pieces that we want as parents to be able to set aside our own solution making and be active listeners with our kids to be able to support and help them. This is one of my personal favorites I wanted to share out of the resources that link that you saw on the last page. It's called Table Talk, and it is a printable deck of conversation cards that are a great way to break the ice if you've had a disagreement or a really difficult conversation that leaves the room feeling icy, or your youth is disengaged and not interested in talking with you. Or you just want to generally stay connected. I pull out, so I print off, you can print this off at your local library or at your house, and put them in a basket on the table or in the living room. And these are wonderful ways for you to just pull out one, stay connected with each other. They're a great way to break that ice and slowly start rebuilding the conversation and connection back if you have had those moments of disagreement or difficult times with your youth. It slowly also opens the door for them to want to talk to you about other things. So while the conversations within this might be, if you had a superpower, what would it be? You might think that has nothing to do with substance use, but it really helps branch out those conversation starters and get youth wanting to talk to you and feeling comfortable talking to you. So with that, I will pass it back over to Cindy, and I am willing to take any questions.
Lovely. So at this point in
Okay.
time, I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature, but people are still welcome to go there. And then since we know that technology doesn't always cooperate with us, I'm just in the process now of allowing the microphones for all attendees. So if you're more comfortable asking your question using the microphone, you should have the ability to turn it on now. And we welcome you to do so. I will say I was quickly taking a look at those cards there, Jessica, and those are fantastic for even some of the work that we do, just when we think about breaking the ice in classrooms and starting to build some of that sense of safety and connection, and definitely going to be passing those ones along to our teams. So.
Yeah, and it's never too early to start. I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old. We've been doing conversation starters at the dinner table since they were able to read. which my 7-year-old passes over me, read the card to me, mom, or it helps break through words. But it's something that you can build into your routine as a parent and really create those conversations. So.
No, that's beautiful. And I'll make sure, so within the upcoming days, the participants of this webinar will be getting an email asking for a little bit of feedback, but also including any of the resources that Jessica's sharing. So I'll make sure that that's linked in there as well. Jessica, I would kind of like to pick your brain a little bit, just recognizing that you're from Southwestern Public Health, but I also know that your organization works very closely with Middlesex London Public Health. Would you say that from your knowledge that like the trends and those stats that you talked about like are reasonably similar or comparable, or are there any differences that you're aware of?
I don't know of an oversampling through Middlesex London Health Unit. I shared our Southwest Public Health region because it is more representative of our school boards than just the provincial data. So, what might stand out would be London. There might be some differences because of access. In our rural communities, there's some differences there. And there's some differences around what activities and services are provided. So when we think about those risk and protective factors, there might be some differences there. But when it comes to substance use, in general, I think that those numbers are fairly safe to say that that's a generalized for our region. When it comes to access within like urban centers to other substances, you might see opioids, for example, be something higher. But it has never wavered. Alcohol, tobacco, cannabis are certainly the highest for our early initiation, right? So early initiation of use. Opioids has certainly stepped up there, though. Yeah. Yeah. I think in the provincial data, it's number 2 now. Yeah.
Opioids are?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You can look at the 2023 OSTIS and you'll see.
Can you just remind me what OSTIS stood for again?
Yeah, so OSTIS is the Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey.
Thank you.
And they have a couple of different reports that are breaking down out of that. So they have one that is specifically mental well-being and some of those protective factors and risk factors from a mental health lens. And then they have the substance report that is strictly around substance use. And every year they kind of add in a few questions. We know that vaping is a new data point that was added. And from my quick glance before the presentation, on a provincial level, everything substance-wise was on a decline, but alcohol and opioids, alcohol and opioids has a jump up.
Wow.
Those two I saw, you're always just looking, I want to see the line go in a very much downward slope, and they both had a tick up. So those things are something to consider. And that's why data is important. It gets dry and nobody wants to really spend time digging into it, but it's really important for us to be able to look at it and then really know where we need to direct ourselves to prevent the most harm. Yeah.
And then recognizing that on this upcoming slide, there are contact emails for myself and Cindy, and we can always get you in touch with Jessica or others. Like if you are looking for, if you're in the London or Middlesex area, or if you're in Southwestern, we can always connect you with some of those fantastic folks as well.
Okay, so we'll just go to our last slide. So as you will see, again, thank you so much, Jessica, for this presentation this evening, and all the work that you've done. And I love how we talked before this about the stats, but you did a great job of helping us understand kind of those key parts out of the stats. So I really appreciate that. So as you'll see, is our contact information for myself, Cindy, and for Caitlin. So if there's any questions that you would like to send to us, more direct about your family, please feel free to do that. We also would really appreciate a few minutes of your time just to gather some feedback as well. And there also is another link that if you wish to sign up for our mailing list and just receive notification of future webinars, and the QR there as well if you're looking to give us some feedback. So we just thank everyone for joining us this evening, and especially during Mental Health Week. And we wish everyone a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much, Jessica.